All right, so today we're going to be diving into something that I think a lot of sales leaders are grappling with right now, and that is hybrid work.
Mm-hmm.
It's companies are trying to figure out what's the best approach. Do we bring everybody back to the office? Do we stay fully remote, or is there some sort of hybrid model that makes the most sense?
Right.
And we've had a lot of requests from you, our listeners, to really unpack the risks that companies face when they resist this shift towards hybrid work.
Mm.
And luckily, we've got some really fascinating insights from the Sales Experts, a
Yeah.
global sales recruitment company, to kind of help us guide this deep dive.
And what's really interesting is that the sales experts aren't just observing this trend. They're actually living it. They're working with companies every day who are either, winning or losing the talent war based on their approach to work models.
Yeah, that's a really great point. And they lay out, I think, a really compelling case in their article called Risk for Companies That Refuse to Embrace Hybrid Working. It's by Nathan Davis, and it's on their website. And, they argue that resisting hybrid work isn't just about office space.
Yeah.
It's about potentially losing your competitive edge.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something I think, as sales leaders, we're all very much concerned with.
Absolutely. And one of the biggest risks they highlight is talent drain, especially amongst top performers.
Right.
I mean, think about it. The best salespeople are often, the ones who are very driven, results-oriented, and they really value their autonomy.
Yeah.
So are those the kind of individuals who thrive in a very rigid environment, or are they looking for the flexibility to manage their time and their location effectively?
That's a great point. I mean, in sales, it's not about FaceTime, it's about closing deals.
Right.
So someone smashing their quota, does it really matter where they're doing it?
Exactly. And that's what the sales experts are seeing. Top performers are increasingly demanding that flexibility and work-life balance. And companies that are clinging to, that solely in-office model, they really risk shrinking their talent pool drastically. And they're going to miss out on those rock star sales professionals who prioritize a more balanced lifestyle.
Yeah. And that shrinking talent pool can directly impact your bottom line. I mean, less talent equals fewer opportunities to find the perfect fit for your team.
Right.
Which, could mean missed sales targets, lost revenue. So,
Yeah.
It's a real concern.
Absolutely. And now here's where I think some people might raise an eyebrow.
Okay.
The sales experts argue that resisting hybrid work could actually lead to decreased productivity, which might sound counterintuitive, but they cite studies in their article showing that hybrid work can actually boost productivity.
So it's not just about attracting top talent. It's about setting them up for success in a way that benefits everyone.
Right.
I'm curious, though, how does hybrid work lead to better productivity?
Well, the sales experts highlight research showing that employees report greater focus and fewer distractions when they're working remotely. I mean, think about your own experience. Can you concentrate better in a busy office, or when you have the flexibility to create kind of your ideal workspace and minimize those interruptions?
Oh, I know. For me, I am so much more productive when I can control my environment and I can schedule my day around those peak performance times.
Right.
But isn't there a risk, though, that, remote work leads to isolation or, people having difficulty collaborating?
That's a very common concern.
Yeah.
And it's something that companies need to address very proactively. But the sales experts suggest that, you focus on outcomes rather than inputs.
Okay.
And you use technology to facilitate that seamless communication and project management, whether people are in the office or they're working remotely.
So it's not about micromanaging where people are working. It's about setting those clear expectations.
Right.
Providing the right tools and trusting your team to deliver results.
Exactly. And this kind of leads into another really critical risk that the sales experts identify, and that is an inflexible company culture.
Yep.
Clinging to that rigid work model, it can really signal to current and potential employees that your company's a little bit out of touch, a little resistant to change.
Right. And in today's fast-paced sales landscape, adaptability is key. You need to be able to pivot and adjust and respond to those market demands really quickly.
Absolutely.
So how does embracing hybrid work actually promote a more flexible and dynamic company culture?
Well, the sales expert suggests that by allowing that flexibility in work arrangements, you're essentially showing your employees that you trust and value them.
Mm-hmm.
And that trust can then lead to greater employee empowerment, a sense of ownership, and a more dynamic and engaged culture. And these are all essential ingredients for a thriving sales team.
So by resisting hybrid work, companies not only risk losing out on top talent and hindering productivity,
Right.
but they also project this image of inflexibility, which is It's a triple threat to their ability to compete in today's market.
Exactly. And this ties into another crucial risk outlined by the sales experts, and that is competitive disadvantage.
Hmm.
As a sales leader, you're always looking for an edge, right?
Of course.
But by refusing to embrace hybrid, you're potentially limiting your talent pool to a specific geographic location.
Yeah.
And you're missing out on a wider range of perspectives and skills.
It's like you're choosing to fish in a small pond when you could have access to the entire ocean.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hybrid work allows companies to tap into a global talent pool.
Wow.
Imagine the possibilities. You can recruit the best salespeople from anywhere in the world, regardless of where your office is located.
That's amazing.
It opens up these incredible opportunities to build diverse, high-performing teams with very specialized expertise, which ultimately leads to greater innovation and sales success.
So it sounds like refusing to adapt to a hybrid model is kind of a major strategic misstep, especially for companies that want to be at the forefront of their industry and attract the best talent.
I would agree with that.
But isn't there a concern about increased costs associated with setting up, remote work arrangements?
That's a very common misconception. And the sales experts debunk that in their article. They argue that while there might be some initial investments in, technology and infrastructure, hybrid work can actually lead to cost savings in the long run.
Yeah, that's what I call a win-win.
Right.
Tell me more, though. Where do those cost savings come from?
Well, one obvious area is reduced office space.
Okay.
If you have fewer people coming into the office every day, you might not need as much square footage.
Yeah.
Which can lead to significant savings on rent, utilities, maintenance.
Right.
And think about the cost associated with the daily commute, gas, car maintenance, public transportation. All of that can add up quite quickly for both the employee and the company. So a hybrid model can potentially alleviate some of those burdens.
So not only could you potentially boost your team's productivity, attract a wider pool of top-tier talent, cultivate a more adaptable company culture, gain a competitive advantage, but you might also save money in the process.
That's what the sales experts are suggesting. They really encourage companies to analyze their current cost structure and compare it to the potential savings of a hybrid model. And I think the results might surprise a lot of people.
So it sounds like the evidence is pretty clear. Resisting hybrid work is a risky move for companies, especially those in sales who are looking to attract and retain top talent.
Yeah, I think that's a safe takeaway.
But I'm curious, what are some of the potential downsides or challenges that companies should be aware of?
Yeah.
I mean, after all, no system is perfect.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
While there are many potential benefits, there are also some challenges that companies need to address proactively to make hybrid work truly successful.
So it's not just about saying, okay, everyone can work from home now.
Exactly.
There's more to it than that.
Absolutely. There's a lot more to it, and that's where we'll pick up in the next part of our deep dive.
I can't wait to hear more about those challenges and how companies can overcome them to create a truly thriving hybrid work environment. Stay tuned, listeners. We'll be right back after a quick break.
So, before the break, we were talking about, some of the potential downsides of hybrid work models, right? And one of the biggest challenges that the sales experts highlight is this risk of employees feeling disconnected or isolated, especially, those who are working remotely most of the time.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it's easy to imagine how, those spontaneous interactions, those team bonding moments that just happen organically in an office environment might be harder to replicate.
Right.
When people are dispersed.
Exactly. And if companies aren't really mindful of this, it can lead to, decreased morale, lower engagement, and ultimately that's going to impact performance.
Right.
So the sales experts emphasize the importance of proactively addressing this challenge to create a truly inclusive hybrid work environment.
So it's not enough to simply offer the option to work remotely. You have to actually put in that extra effort to foster that sense of connection.
Right.
And belonging amongst your hybrid teams.
Right. Exactly. And they suggest, be more deliberate about communication, team building, creating opportunities for interaction, both virtual and in person. It's about making sure that everyone feels like they're a valued part of the team, regardless of their location.
Yeah. And they give some really concrete examples of how companies can achieve this.
Yeah.
Like scheduling regular team building activities. Encouraging those virtual coffee breaks or those informal chats, during online meetings. It's about finding those creative ways to replicate those water cooler moments that, would happen naturally in an office setting.
Exactly. Another challenge that the sales experts highlight is the potential for communication breakdowns.
Oh, yeah.
In a hybrid environment, so you've got some team members in the office, others working remotely,
Right.
it's really crucial to have very clear communication protocols and strategies in place to make sure that everyone is on the same page.
Yeah, because it's so easy to imagine how, miscommunication or lack of information flow could lead to, delays, missed deadlines, and ultimately impact, sales performance.
Absolutely.
So what are some of the ways that the sales experts recommend, overcoming this communication hurdle?
Well, they really emphasize the importance of over-communicating in a hybrid environment.
Okay.
Don't assume that people are in the loop just because you shared information in a meeting or an email.
Right.
Reinforce those key messages through multiple channels. Make sure that everyone has access to the information they need and encourage that open and transparent dialogue.
So it's about being more deliberate, more intentional with communication
Right.
and using, a variety of different tools and methods to reach everyone, regardless of location.
Exactly. They recommend, utilizing a combination of video conferencing, instant messaging, project management software, even good old-fashioned phone calls, just to keep everyone connected and informed. And it's not just about the tools themselves, it's about how they're used. Companies need to create a culture where people feel comfortable asking questions, sharing ideas, providing feedback, regardless of whether they're in the office or remote.
So clear communication really is the foundation of a successful hybrid work model.
Absolutely.
But what about managing performance? How do you ensure that your remote workers are staying productive and meeting their goals when you're not physically there to kind of oversee their work?
That's a really common concern for sales leaders.
Yeah.
And rightly so, but the sales experts argue that managing performance in a hybrid environment isn't all that different from managing it in a traditional office setting.
Right.
The fundamental principles remain the same.
So it's not about reinventing the wheel.
Right.
It's about adapting your approach to fit this new context.
Exactly. You still need to set clear goals and expectations, provide regular feedback and coaching, and hold people accountable for their results. But you might need to shift your mindset a little bit and adjust your methods to account for the fact that you're not physically present with your team all the time.
So it's about finding that balance between trust and accountability.
Exactly. You need to trust your team to get the job done, even if you can't see them working at their desks, right?
Okay.
But you also need to have systems in place to monitor progress, measure performance, and provide support when it's needed. And the sales experts offer some practical tips for achieving this balance.
Well, I'm all about practical tips.
Yeah.
So what are some of those specific things that sales leaders can do to effectively manage performance in a hybrid work environment?
Well, they emphasize the importance of clear communication, again, regular check-ins, and leveraging technology to track progress and provide feedback.
So being more proactive, intentional with your communication and really using those tools to your advantage.
Exactly. Schedule those regular one-on-one meetings with your team members, both in person and virtually, to discuss, their goals, their progress, any challenges they might be facing. Use video conferencing to maintain that face-to-face connection even when you're not physically together, and utilize project management software to track deadlines, milestones, and individual contributions.
Those are all great suggestions. But what about those informal performance conversations that often just happen organically in an office?
Right.
Those quick chats at someone's desk or a spontaneous brainstorming session in the break room. How do you replicate that in a hybrid model?
Yeah, that's where leaders need to get a little bit more creative and proactive. The sales experts suggest scheduling those virtual coffee breaks or informal team chats,
Right.
even just for 15, 20 minutes to create that space for those casual interactions and brainstorming sessions. Encourage team members to reach out to each other directly, through instant messaging or video calls when they need to collaborate or bounce ideas off each other.
So it's about being intentional about creating those opportunities
Yes.
for informal communication and collaboration, even when people aren't physically together.
Exactly. And it's also about empowering your team to take ownership of their work and their communication. Encourage them to be proactive about reaching out to each other, sharing updates, and asking for help when they need it.
So it sounds like managing performance in a hybrid environment really does require kind of a shift in mindset, both for leaders and team members.
It does.
It's about embracing that flexibility, trusting your team, and being more intentional with communication and collaboration.
Couldn't agree more. And when you get it right, the benefits can be significant your age, increased productivity, improved morale, and a much more engaged and motivated team.
All of which I imagine contributes to greater sales success.
Absolutely. But it's not without its challenges. And companies need to be prepared to adapt, to learn, and continuously evolve their approach to make hybrid work truly successful.
The sales experts have given us so much to think about already.
Yeah.
So many valuable insights and practical advice for navigating all the complexities of hybrid work. But I want to kind of zoom out a little bit and get your perspective on the bigger picture. What does this rise of hybrid work mean for the future of work? Is this just a passing trend, or is it really a fundamental shift in how we think about work and the workplace?
That's a great question, and it's one that I think a lot of leaders are really grappling with as they try to make sense of, this rapidly changing work landscape.
So is hybrid work here to stay?
I believe it is, and I think the sales experts would agree that evidence seems to suggest that this isn't just a fleeting response to the pandemic,
Right.
but a deeper shift in how we view work and the workplace. And it's driven by a lot of factors, including technology, evolving workforce expectations, and really just the changing nature of work itself.
It's so fascinating to consider how all of these forces are coming together to reshape the way we work.
It is.
What are some of the key implications of this shift for sales leaders and their teams?
Well, I think one of the most significant implications is this need to rethink leadership styles and approaches, that traditional command and control approach,
Yeah.
where managers are closely supervising every aspect of their team's work. That just doesn't fly in a hybrid environment.
So it's about moving away from managing tasks to really leading people.
Exactly. Sales leaders need to become much more comfortable with delegating responsibility, empowering their teams to make decisions, and fostering that culture of trust and autonomy.
It's about creating an environment where people feel supported and valued, regardless of where they are physically working.
Precisely. And it's also about being more adaptable and comfortable with ambiguity.
Mhm.
The hybrid work model is constantly evolving, so leaders need to be willing to experiment, learn, and adjust their approach as needed.
So it's not about having all the answers.
No.
It's about being open to new ideas and approaches and being willing to learn and grow along with your team.
Absolutely. And that includes embracing technology and leveraging it to facilitate that communication, that collaboration, that performance management in a hybrid environment.
It sounds like leading a hybrid team requires a whole new set of skills and mindsets.
It does. It does. But the good news is these skills can be learned and developed. The key is to be aware of the challenges and opportunities of hybrid work and to be proactive about investing in your own growth as a leader.
So it's not just about adapting to hybrid work, it's about leading the way.
I couldn't agree more. And for those sales leaders who embrace this new way of leading, the rewards can be pretty significant.
Greater productivity, higher morale, a more engaged and motivated team, all of which contribute to greater sales success.
Precisely. And as we continue this deep dive, we'll explore, how companies can create a hybrid work model that's not only effective, but also fulfilling for everyone involved.
Okay, sounds good. We'll be back after a quick break to discuss the final insights from the sales experts and to really explore what the future holds for hybrid work and the world of sales. Okay, so we're back and ready to wrap up this deep dive into hybrid work and all the risks that companies face when they just don't adapt. We've explored, some of the potential downsides, the importance of clear communication and performance management, and of course that need for a leadership evolution.
Yeah.
But what does this all mean for you, our listener, as you navigate this evolving landscape of sales?
Well, the insights from the sales experts are really crystal clear. To attract and retain that top sales talent, boost productivity, and create a more dynamic and adaptable company culture, embracing hybrid work is no longer optional.
Right.
It's absolutely essential.
They really drive home the point that, clinging to that outdated in-office only model could really hinder your company's ability to compete and succeed in today's market. Yeah, I mean, they've seen firsthand how companies who resist this shift are falling behind.
It's not just about following a trend, though, right? It's about recognizing a fundamental shift in how we work. Top performers, especially in sales, are increasingly demanding that flexibility, and they're seeking a better balance between their professional and personal lives.
And companies that fail to adapt to this new reality risk losing out on a vast pool of talent. Like you said earlier, it's like choosing to fish in a small pond when you could have access to the entire ocean.
Exactly. And that access to a global talent pool can be a real game changer for sales organizations. Imagine being able to build a team with the best salespeople from anywhere in the world,
Wow.
each with their unique skills, perspectives, and cultural insights. That's a real recipe for innovation and sales success.
And it's not just about finding more salespeople. It's about finding the right salespeople. The
Absolutely.
ones who are not only skilled and experienced, but also aligned with your company culture and values, even if they're, located thousands of miles away.
Precisely. And the sales experts also remind us that, embracing hybrid work isn't just about attracting and retaining talent.
Hmm.
It's also about creating a more productive, engaged, and fulfilling work environment for everyone.
Right. And we talked earlier about how hybrid work can actually boost productivity by allowing employees to work when and where they're most effective. Minimize distractions and reduce that stress and time wasted on commuting.
Right.
It's really about giving people the autonomy to design their ideal workdays and focus on delivering those results.
And that sense of autonomy and trust can lead to greater employee engagement, a stronger sense of ownership, and ultimately a more positive and dynamic company culture.
Hmm.
It's a win-win for both individuals and organizations.
So as we kind of come to the end of our deep dive,
Hmm.
what are some of the key takeaways for sales leaders like our listener who are, thinking about making that switch to hybrid work?
Okay.
What are some of the most important things to keep in mind?
Well, first and foremost, I think it's important to recognize that hybrid work is not just a perk, it's a strategic advantage.
Well,
It's about creating a work environment that attracts and empowers the best sales talent, enables them to thrive and drive results regardless of their location.
and it's not just about letting people work from home a few days a week, right?
No.
It requires that deliberate shift in mindset, a commitment to clear communication, and a willingness to adapt and evolve your approach as you go.
Absolutely. It's about creating a hybrid work model that's tailored to your team's specific needs and challenges, ensuring that everyone feels connected, supported, and empowered to do their best work, whether they're in the office or remote.
And don't be afraid to experiment and learn along the way, right?
Right. There's no one-size-fits-all approach to hybrid work. What works for one team might not work for another.
Yeah.
The key is to be open to new ideas, gather feedback from your team, and to continuously iterate and improve your hybrid work model over time.
And maybe most importantly, remember that embracing hybrid work isn't just about adapting to the future of work.
Right.
It's about shaping it. By
Exactly.
leading the way with flexibility, trust, and empowerment, you can create a better way of working, not just for your team, but for everyone.
Well said. I couldn't agree more.
That's a powerful message, and I really hope that resonates with our listeners. The future of work is not predetermined. It's being created right now by leaders like you who are willing to challenge the status quo and imagine new possibilities.
So to our listener, we encourage you to explore the insights from the Footies. The sales experts reflect on your own leadership style and really consider how embracing hybrid work could transform your team, your organization, and your sales success.
Absolutely great advice. And that's all for today's deep dive into hybrid work. We hope you found it insightful, informative, and maybe even a little bit inspiring.
Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep pushing those boundaries of what's possible.